Hey guys, it's Sherry Vegas and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be giving you my top tips and tricks for candle making. In this video, I'm going to be covering a lot of the questions that you guys ask all the time on all of my other candle making videos. If you haven't seen any of those, I'll add the link up somewhere here, and I've got a full playlist on Beginner's Guide to Candle Making, and these are just some questions that keep reoccurring throughout those videos, so I thought it'd be really good to do this one to kind of explain all of that, plus also add a few extra tips and tricks in that are really going to help you level up your candle making game. The first piece of advice that I would give someone who is absolutely brand new to candle making is go and buy a candle making kit. They are generally a lot more cost effective than buying everything you need individually, and you also know that the items are going to work well together. So when you first start candle making, it can be quite overwhelming everything that you need to get. So by getting a kit, it just makes it a lot easier, and you can make a few candles generally out of one kit. I would say look for better quality candle kits because you're going to get better wicks, you're going to get better waxes in them. If you go for cheaper ones, which are fine if you're just kind of wanting something to do, you're generally not going to get great, amazing, professional candles out of those cheaper candle kits. So it kind of just depends on what you want to create, but it's a great way to get sort of your foot in the door with candle making and have a little experiment and a little play, because obviously the first lot of candles you make are not going to be professional grade candles because you are learning. So it kind of is a really smart way to get into it without spending a ton of money is to buy one of those kits. Another reason too is you know all the products work well together. So you know that the fragrances work well with the wax and you've got the right size wick for the right size container, because generally that is the hardest thing to figure out when you first start candle making is what wax you should use for what container and what size wick will match that container, and that takes quite a lot of trial and error working that out. So the kits are really great on that hand because you know that it's the right size wick for the right size container that they give you, because they've already done that sort of sorting that out for you. You don't have to work that out yourself. So candle making kits are a great way to get started because they're just generally more cost effective, and they also have worked it all out for you. They will tell you the right amount of fragrance, the right this, the right that, and you can put it all together. One of the most asked questions I get generally on all of my candle making videos is the wax to fragrance ratio. So the easiest way to find out how much fragrance you can add into your wax is generally on the packet. Every time you buy a bag of wax, it will say what the absolute maximum it can hold percentage wise. So most waxes can hold around 10% absolute maximum. 5% is generally ideal. Now, if you do want a candle that is going to be super strong smelling and super fragrance, then you need to buy a wax that can hold more fragrance. So not all waxes are designed to be the same. So when you do purchase your wax online, read the descriptions, find out what they are ideal for, because all waxes will have different ranges that it can hold scent. Some will be designed for pillars, some will be designed to be in containers. There's a whole bunch of different factors you need to think about when you are doing your wax to fragrance ratio. So if you want something that's super strong, buy a wax that can hold more or a higher percent fragrance, and also to buy quality fragrances that are going to have better scent throws. So that one's pretty simple. Most of them are around 10 to 5% of the amount of wax you're going to be using for that pour, but it will generally say on the packet what ratio you need to have that at. I don't know about anyone else, but who just loves an iced coffee? I absolutely love iced coffee, especially because it's summer here, so it's nicer than drinking hot coffee because it gets very hot here and I do not want to be drinking a hot coffee during the middle of the day. But I feel like I'm not going to be able to sleep properly tonight because I'm one of those people that goes to bed really, really early. But gets up super early, and I feel like because that's my second coffee of the day and it's after 12, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. And I feel like I'm talking super fast. Okay, so let's get to tip number 3. So tip number 3 is get a metal straw or a firm plastic straw, and this is going to make it way easier to add in your wicks, especially if you're using longer containers that you can't get your hand into. This will help you center them, and it's just a super easy tip that some of you might have not even thought about. My fourth tip that I'm going to be covering today is what temperature should you pour your wax at? Well, this is going to change once again depending on the brand of wax you're using and the type of wax you're using. It will generally say online what temperature it needs to be heated up to and what temperature it needs to be poured at. Or it will say it on the packet. You also do need to make sure that you know where your wax is coming from, because obviously in Australia a lot of our wax comes from America and it generally will have American temperatures on it, so therefore I then need to convert that. Unless I'm buying from an Aussie brand, they will already convert it for me, but that's something to also factor in, is like where you're getting your wax from does depend on what temperatures they have on that. The second thing that you need to think about is, I lost my train of thought really quickly, but the second thing that you need to know when you are pouring is you have to really adhere to those pouring temperatures. They're not a guideline. If you want to get high quality candles, the heat that you pour your candle at really affects the overall outcome. So it will generally say that you need to heat it up to a certain amount. This is so the wax molecule basically expands out, it fully melts down, and you have nothing but liquid wax. Then they will have a temperature that they recommend where you add your fragrance in. If you add your fragrance in before, while your wax is heating up, you can find that a lot of it will start to burn off, because it's basically doing what will happen when you light your candle is the heat will make the fragrance come out. So you don't want to add your fragrance in when you are getting your wax up to temperature. You want to make sure you only add your fragrance in at the correct fragrance temperature to add in, and that's generally when it's starting to cool down right before it gets to that pouring temperature. So the pouring temperature matters because if you pour your wax too hot, you can get two things that will happen. You can get sinkholes in the top of your wax because the wax was poured too hot and it creates a divot, or you can get little air bubbles, and that way when your wax burns down, you'll have air pockets throughout your candle. The other thing that can happen if you do pour your wax too hot is when it does cool down, it's going to contract and come away from your edges, which is a big deal when you are doing container candles. You don't want the wax to contract from the edges. It doesn't look great. So you need to make sure that you pour it at the right temperature, because that's going to mean that the wax is cool enough to pour where when it does start to set, it's not going to contract from the edges and you're not going to get sinkholes in the top of your wax, and you're going to get a lot more professional finish. Another big question that I get asked all the time is to do with frosting in the wax. So you can get frosting in natural soy wax candles, and you can get frosting in colored soy wax candles, and obviously the other types of wax. And the reason why you generally notice it more is just because in your colored wax candles, you can see the frosting a lot more. You can still get it in your natural ones where you haven't added any colors in, but you just don't really notice it as much. So that's why when you do start to work with colors and coloring your candles, you will notice that you get frosting a lot more. And it's just because the colors are highlighting it. It can be caused by a few different things, and it is one of, I say, probably the hardest parts to deal with candle making is dealing with the frosting, because sometimes you can do everything correct and still get frosting. And there are a few different ideas of why you get frosting. Sometimes it's too much coloring, sometimes you're pouring at the wrong temperature, adding too much fragrance in, the temperature of the room. A whole bunch of factors can play in, and honestly it's quite hard to avoid, especially if you are doing a lot of colored candles. But there is one thing that you can do after you get frosting that will help it go away. So you want to make sure that you always use high quality containers when you are pouring your wax in, and you definitely want to make sure you're not over coloring, you're pouring your wax at the correct temperature and using the correct amount of fragrance for that particular wax. But if you still get frosting even though you've done all of those steps, using a heat gun and going around the outside edge of your container and heating up that outside part of the wax will then help all of that frosting disappear. You can only do this if you do use heat resistant high quality containers. If you're using cheaper glass, you'll probably find that your glass will break under the pressure of the heat gun. But if you are using proper glass containers that are designed for candles, then generally this is fine. You don't want to hold your heat gun in any spot for too long. You just want to go all around the area where there is frosting and let that melt, and then you'll find that a lot of bubbles will come up in that time. And then once that candle has cooled back down, the frosting will have been gone, like the frosting will go. Now, frosting doesn't actually affect any part of the quality of the candle. It's just something that occurs. So if you are just making these candles for yourself at home and you're not worried about frosting, then that's fine. But if you are making these candles to sell, obviously you don't want to be selling candles with frosting, because the regular person that doesn't know a lot about candles will think that something is wrong. Now, as I said before, it does not affect the quality, it does not affect the way that the candle burns or the smell or anything like that, but it's just sort of a superficial imperfection. You can obviously sell your candles at a markdown price if you don't want to go through and heat gun them all. But it's a lot hard to explain to customers why it doesn't affect them. So by using a heat gun, you can make them look as good as new without having to scrape all that wax out and start again. The last tip that I'm going to be covering in this video, and let me know if you want more, because I have so much more like little tips and tricks to do with candle making. So let me know if you want more tips. I will do another video. I'm just not trying to make this too long. So the last tip I'm going to cover is candle sweating. So this can happen for a few different reasons. Generally, the number one cause is you've added too much fragrance and the candle wax can't hold that amount of fragrance. So it starts to kind of expel it out of the wax, and you'll notice you'll get a residue on top of your candle. Now, this doesn't look great if you are selling your candles if they are sweating fragrance out because you have added the wrong amount. Candle sweating can also occur if you've added the fragrance at the wrong time when you're making the candles and not letting it combine properly throughout the wax. So if you add your fragrance in right before you're about to pour it and you just give it a quick mix and pour it out, you'll find that your fragrance hasn't properly combined with your wax and the wax will start expelling it. So it might be that you've used the correct amount of fragrance, but you've just added it too late in the process, and this can sometimes cause the candles to sweat as well. With candle sweating, if you have done all the correct steps, but you are just in a hot environment or even sometimes in a cold environment can cause it to occur, there's not a lot you can do. Overall, it doesn't affect the quality, but it just doesn't look amazing if you are trying to sell them, if they've got drips of like sweat all around the top is what we call it. Well, I hope you guys have all enjoyed this tips and tricks video to do with candle making. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that way you get notified every single time I post a new video. And if you want another one of these, I have got so many tips and tricks for candle making. So if you'd like me to do like a part 2, let me know and I'll definitely start getting onto that. This is probably like one of the last videos I'm filming in this space. I might do like one more next week, but I move in a week and a half, which is super exciting because I'm moving into a lot bigger space. So hopefully I'm going to be more productive with a bigger space, because right now the space I'm in is very tiny and I have to kind of fit all of my art supplies into it and work around them. So that is very exciting. But if you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. If you would like a part 2, leave a comment in the description box below, or if you have any helpful tips and tricks for candle making, leave it in the description box below and I might add it into my second video. But thank you guys all for watching. I'm gonna finish my iced coffee and go off and play with my dog Coco. Thank you guys.